Okay, let's look at a problem, and problems 2, so 2 through 7 are similar. And it looks like number 7 you're going to need to put in to StatCrunch yourself. But let's go back to number 2, and you can see we've got this little icon where we can take this into StatCrunch. So what is this? Well, we have a very small population, 1, 3, and 8. And we're going to select samples of size 2, and so we come up with all the possibility of 2 choices from our population, and we're sampling with replacement. So we get 9 choices. Let's take that to StatCrunch. Okay, now what you're going to do is in StatCrunch you are going to find the sample variance for each of these 9 samples. Okay, so I'm going to do stat, but now summary statistics, but now my samples are in rows and not columns. And I want to look in row X1 and X2. And let's go ahead and compute. And so there you can see my variance. Now, here are your possible variances for your 9 samples. Notice that they repeat. And so when you click on this, you have some choices. You're going to start with the smallest to the largest. Well, the smallest is 0. So you saw in that drop down box it was 0 was a choice. So that's what I'm going to choose there. And then how many times does it happen? Well, it happens 3 times out of the 9 possible choices. So you have a probability of 3 ninths. Okay? And you're going to go through and do that. Then it's going to ask you, so let's just go ahead and do it. So I have 0, and it happened 3 out of 9 times, so that's my probability. And then the next one is 2, and there it is. And that, I believe, happened 2 out of 9 times. Yep. So that probability is 2 ninths. And sorry, I can't keep this on here for you. And so then my next one is 3. Oops, that's the mean. My next one is 12.5, and you can see that happens twice. So there's 12.5, and it's going to happen 2 times out of the 9 possibilities. And then my last value is 24.5, and you can see that happens twice out of 9 times. Okay, now in the next part, it asks, compare the population variance to the mean of the sample variances. Okay, sample variances. The mean is the expected value, so you're going to take your value times your probability for each of these, and then you're going to add them up. All right? Then you also have to find your population variance. So let's go back to our data set. But I'm going to just put in my population over here in another column. And my possible, the units in my population were 1, 3, and 8. Now I'm going to go up to my stats, and I'm going to do summary statistics, but this time I'm going to do columns, and I put it in that variable 6. Now we don't want to know any of these. We want to know the population variance, but here is the important thing. You've got to go down and you need to do this unadjusted variance. That's what you need to do for the population variance, because remember, a sample variance is divided by n minus 1. A population variance is divided by n. So let's do compute. And there is our population variance, 8.67, and I'm going to tell you it is going to be exactly the same as the mean of your sample variances. So you can say the population variance is equal to the mean of the sample variances. And then the last part says, so are sample variances a good estimator of the population variance? Well, it is, because they were the same. So sample variances target the population variances. So my first two choices are the best. And if they target the population variance, then they make a good estimator. And that's how you do these problems. So in number 3, you're looking at the standard deviation. And notice we can take this into StatCrunch because you're finding the value of the population standard deviation. This is the unadjusted standard deviation. So again, when you do this, you'll get your possible samples in the rows. And we're just going to go over here and we're going to enter our population, 2, 3, 10. And I want to find my standard deviation, so I'm going to do stat columns. And I want to go down and find my unadjusted standard deviation. Oops. In the variable 6 column. And so there's my unadjusted standard deviation. And then remember how we're going to find our sample standard deviation. We're going to go stat, summary statistics, rows. And we want x1 and x2 because the sample is just a label. And there I have my standard deviations. Remember, when I do sample standard deviations, I don't do the unadjusted. I do the one that's further up in the column. I'm dividing by n minus 1. And there you go, and look at that. There's 9 possibilities. You've got some repeating values. You're going to go through and you're going to do the probability, and you can find the expected value, which is the average, and go through and do the exact same thing. In number 4, you're going to look at the median and do the same thing. Number 5, you are going to do sample proportions. Target the value of the population proportion. Construct a probability distribution that describes the sampling to distribution of odd numbers when the samples are n2. So what can we have? Here we have 0 odd numbers. We have 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2. I don't think we need to get that out. So our sample proportion is 0. And how many times did that happen? That happened 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's going to be 1/9. What was our other? We could have 1. Oh, we must have divided by 2. So we can get 0.5, and that's going to happen when it happens twice. And then we can get 1 as our highest number. And then we're going to go through and do the same kind of thing. Number 6, again, we're looking at the possible means for this. Now, what you're going to need to do on this one is you want to come up with your 16 samples and come up with the means. So add them together and divide by 2. And you know these are going to get the values. How many are you going to do it? Now, you could put this into StatCrunch. Let's open up StatCrunch. And I have a blank table, so let's go ahead and just put stuff in. So I can come up with 45 and 45, and 45 and 35, and 45 and 28, and 45 and 13. And then my second number could be 35, and 35 and 45 and 30. Order doesn't matter, so I can have 35 and 35. And so we're just going to list our possibilities, and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did before. And we're going to come up with the mean of all the possible samples. And I do believe we're going to have, we have 4, so I think we'll have 16 possibilities. Because if you remember right, if I have a possibility of 4 and I'm looking for samples of 2, I think that will be 4 squared, which will be 16. So you keep going this way. In number 7, again, you want to figure out the possible samples, and remember, when we have 3 possibilities, we have 9 samples, so that makes it pretty easy. And then you're going to go through and do the same thing, but you'll want to put those samples into StatCrunch and do it. So I hope that helps with this section.